Venus Dasha. If Venus is in its exaltation sign, its own sign, or placed in an angular trine, then during its Dasha there will be acquisition of luxury items such as fine clothing, ornaments, vehicles, valuable assets, and land. There will be the availability of delicacies daily, recognition from authorities, and participation in lavish events featuring music and dance, all due to the benevolence of the goddess of fortune. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Venus as the Karaka rules most of the things that are listed here. Luxury items such as fine clothing, ornaments, vehicles, valuable assets, delicious food, entertainment with music and dance. And if Venus is well dignified and well placed, then there will be luxury, comfort, and material abundance in its Dasha. If Venus is in its Mula Trikona sign during its Dasha, there will be surety in acquiring authority, property, the birth of children and grandchildren, family celebrations, the attainment of a high position like a military commander, visits from friends, and the recovery of lost wealth, property, or power. So Parashara singles out Venus in its Mula Trikona sign of Libra because it is the position where Venus can most fully express its positive attributes, especially when it comes to harmony in relationships, prosperity, and social status. So naturally, family relationships, children and grandchildren become highly important. Harmonious relationships also contribute to achieving a high status and prosperity. And so Venus here in its most pure and excellent form can bestow luxury, a pleasing family experience, and a high social status during its Dasha. So we might ask, isn't Venus in Pisces giving the best results? And the answer is yes and no. When it comes to material results, Venus in its Mula Trikona sign is the most perfectly situated to give luxury, love, and status. Venus there can enjoy the most, right? Venus in Pisces is superior to Venus in Mula Trikona because it brings out the deeper spiritual side of Venus. Venus in Pisces becomes more spiritual, more selfless, and idealistic, and it also focuses more on the intangible, right? This is where emotional fulfillment and selfless love are emphasized, and the pursuit of material wealth is just less important. And therefore, in terms of material success, Venus in Mula Trikona is actually superior because it directly promotes financial fortune and the pleasures of this world. But in terms of spiritual fulfillment, Venus in Pisces is superior because it focuses on selfless love and a spiritual connection. If Venus is in the 6, 8, or 12, there will be, during its Dasha, strained relationships with family, distress to the spouse, financial losses in business, destruction of property, and separation from relatives. So when Venus is in a Dushtana, then it struggles to manifest its positive qualities. Venus in the 6th house has to deal with everyday chores and constant problems, whether related to health or work or family members. And when they are not managed properly, they can wear a person down and affect the relationships, right, to the point of developing resentment and distance. Of course, Venus in the 6th house financially can also bring losses, through work and partnerships. There can be financial debts and even legal disputes. Venus in the 8th house. Well, no planet is comfortable in the 8th house as it deals with death and rebirth. The 8th house has to do with shocking events and abrupt changes that have irreversible effects on our life. And Venus in the 8th house can face sudden transformation with family and shared money. And those will be based on hidden liabilities, trust issues, and other deep-rooted issues. And so Venus here can either deeply transform and strengthen the relationships, or it can break them up. Venus in the 12th house of loss struggles with manifesting love and the comforts of this world in a grounded way. It fantasizes too much about perfect love and beauty that might not even exist in reality or simply be out of reach. And then that leads to isolation, escapist behaviors, and emotional dissatisfaction in relationships. And so what is happening? In the 12th house, this is where the boundaries are dissolved. And that's why love there is never meant to be mundane. And so for Venus in the 12th house, the solution is really to connect on a deeper, more meaningful level. And then there can be satisfaction. Now, financially, Venus in the 12th house can, of course, cause losses. Money can be wasted and just slip away easily. And so the person needs to cultivate a responsible mindset towards how they spend and manage their money. If Venus is in the 4th house as the lord of the 9th or 10th house, during its dasha there will be attainment of rulership, performance of charitable deeds, such as building reservoirs and temples or giving in charity. There will also be the daily availability of treats, increased energy in work, recognition, and happiness from the spouse and children. Venus is the planet of material happiness, and when it is in the 4th house, then it gives a pleasant home life, right, with all the comforts and refined tastes. Now, if it rules the 9th house, then there's also a tendency towards moral conduct, merit making, and giving in charity. And as the 10th lord, Venus is now able to connect career to emotional well-being, and the person becomes well-liked and respected at work and are able to achieve a high position, right? And so Venus here is deeply nourished by the home environment, and the joy and energy it has, it is then able to radiate outward into their career and relationships. Similar effects are seen during the sub-periods of Venus. However, if Venus is the lord of the 2nd or 7th house, there will be, during its dasha, physical discomforts and troubles. So Venus dasha is special because it is able to remain pleasing throughout its 20-year-long dasha. Other dashas like Saturn or Rahu dasha can go through huge ups and downs depending on the antardasha, but Venus dasha can sustain its level of prosperity and comfort throughout. The antardasha of a malefic planet can bring some trials, but those difficulties will be experienced with comfort and grace. Now, of course, that depends on if Venus is strong and able to provide an enjoyable life in the first place. By the way, the same applies to moon dasha. If you remember, it said during the dasha of the moon, from its beginning to the end, there will be prosperity, fame, good fortune, and so on. So both Venus dasha and the moon dasha maintain their level of prosperity and comfort throughout the dasha if they are powerfully placed. It also says here, if Venus is a marka, which means the lord of the 2nd or 7th house, or we can also include here if it is ruling the 6th, 8th, or 12th house, then there will be problems with health and relationships and other troubles that might affect inner peace. But again, they will be there alongside the external prosperity and enjoyments that Venus sustains throughout its dasha.